Hi there, Alan here, rvacrossamerica.net, and this is a report to you of a brief journey that I took from Anaconda to Philipsburg earlier this week. I'm doing this as I'm out in Missoula, Montana at the moment, and we're driving west from Anaconda. This is just after a 5 inch or so snowfall in town on the 13th of October. I was driving west on the 15th because it took me a couple days to free the camper from a willow tree that decided to engulf my air conditioner. And that necessitated my getting on the roof safely and also clearing off the slides because the temperatures did not recover. As I was leaving Anaconda on the morning of the 15th, temperatures were in the mid 30s. That's not my idea of ideal weather to break down the camper and travel. However, as you can see, with just a little bit of climb from Anaconda, and Anaconda is at about 5,300 feet, we're on our way to about 6,300 feet. It looks like Christmas, and this is the 15th of October. The trees had snow on their needles, and it was really just spectacular. This is just a short drive, by the way. This is only a little bit over a half an hour journey from Anaconda over to Philipsburg. It goes from one valley to the other valley being Philipsburg Valley, and I'm not sure the name of the valley Anaconda's in, but you're crossing essentially the Pitler Mountains, and but they get much higher than this particular pass. Georgetown Lake and Georgetown are around 6,300 to 6,500 feet elevation. We're still climbing to get near the top. The first thing we're going to approach in a moment is Silver Lake. You can see, by the way, as we get higher, there's a little bit of blue sky, and that's because we're climbing out of the inversion. This is something that's very common during the winter, where cold air is trapped and collects in the valleys. You have a low-lying overcast that sits over the valleys, and when you get high enough, you get out of that overcast, and that's what's happening here as we are passing by Silver Lake, which is itself an absolutely beautiful but largely private lake with no real public access to get at. In contrast, when we go around the curve coming up, you'll be entering into the Georgetown Lake area, and take notice of a change in both the foliage and in the amount of snow cover when we get to the Georgetown side. There's a lot less on the Georgetown side. And although it seems to be a minor curve and a minor pass, there are different weather patterns that seem to affect one side versus the other. Unfortunately for the ski area known as Discovery on the Georgetown side, they don't get all that much snow. So they're on that side that doesn't get nearly as much. In fact, there are a lot of places in Montana that seem to get clocked a lot more, not the least of which would be Lookout Pass and Lost Trail. Both are on the Idaho-Montana border, but are separated by a few hundred miles because of the size of Montana. It's impressively large. So we're going around that curve, and when we get over to the Georgetown side, you'll notice that the weather changes markedly. There is a low overcast. We're essentially getting back into the inversion, and the temperature dropped. It was about 33 degrees by Silver Lake. You can still see beautiful foliage here, by the way. And on the Georgetown side, the temperature slipped down to about 31 degrees. But notice the trees no longer have any snow in them, and there really aren't much in the way of fir trees on this side, at least right next to the lake, until you get a little further. But that's when you start dropping down into the valley, the Philipsburg Valley. And the Philipsburg Valley is a pretty beautiful canyon. It's a deep canyon, relatively deep canyon. It also drops down about 1,000 feet, so it's about the same elevation in Anaconda as it is in Philipsburg when you get around. Now you can barely see the lake here off to the left-hand side. This is the same lake that I was paddling in just a few days earlier. You're going to see a couple of clips in a moment, one here and one at the end, of Georgetown Lake on a clearer day. Here we go. I was taking a moment to panorama around as I'm in my kayak, It was a beautiful day. This was the 6th of October. It was actually in the low 40s, and it was the day after the first snowfall of the season, which was on the 5th. Now we're back onto the road on the 15th. We're headed down the canyon, and you'll notice very quickly the foliage changes. The trees are once again fairly heavily snow covered, and you're passing the last of the area just along Georgetown Lake before we pass the dam and start dropping down into the valley. You'll notice the fog picks up as the inversion gets thicker, and temperatures are holding right around 30 degrees as I drop down into the valley. Fortunately, the roads were dry. Remember, I'm pulling my camper at this point, and I'm not a real fan of pulling the camper on snow or ice-covered roads. I'm sure you can appreciate that. This post, by the way, is at rvacrossamerica.net/early Christmas. And I named it that because of what it looks like here. You know, it's just absolutely spectacular as you're going down through this canyon. This is just so special. It doesn't last. It's not going to last. I mean, the temperature did come up, and it did rain a couple days later. On my way to Missoula, there was just a driving rain on the 18th, 19th, I think it was, that I headed over to Missoula. Yeah, it was on the 19th. Recording this as I speak right now, the morning of the 20th, and hopefully I'll get this video out pretty quickly. And you can see how thick the snow is here on the west side of Georgetown Lake, headed down into the Philipsburg Valley. We're getting closer and closer to where the road opens up and the valley opens up. The speeds are about 35 on these curves around here. Of course, I'm going even more conservatively with the camper. And again, temperatures are hovering just below freezing. There's fog. You never know when there's going to be a little bit of black ice, even though at this point it's about, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning or so, or 11:30. So the chances of that in October are slim. But a couple of years ago, coming into this area in October, I hit temperatures near zero. In fact, overnight it got below zero. So Montana, western Montana, can get quite cold quite early, and nothing surprises me. While I was in Philipsburg, there was another sugarcoating of snow. In fact, the post itself at rvacrossamerica.net/early Christmas has some great photos, including photos of the town of Philipsburg, and I'd encourage you to go over there and check that out. I think it's just a lot of fun being in Philipsburg. It's a 19th century, early 20th century mining town that the buildings have been largely preserved, and it's just a real neat place to visit. We're now into the Philipsburg Valley, and this goes on for quite a while. I've, of course, edited the distances so it's not as long and arduous for you to sit here and watch me trudge along, but we're about to make the turnoff into Philipsburg. There is a restaurant down at the foot of the hill here called The Station. I would encourage you to avoid it. There are restaurants that are up in the town that are definitely worth visiting. In fact, staying at the Philipsburg Inn, which we're about to pull into, it's actually close enough to walk up into the town. It is a bit of a hill, but if you're in good cardio, you can certainly walk up the hill and get up to town. There's a number of good places. I've taken photos of some of them. Again, the post at rvacrossamerica.net/early Christmas will highlight some of that for you. And I think you'll find that it's a neat place. I spent a total of 4 nights there. You don't need that long in order to explore the town, but there is a town of Granite above it. It's a ghost town. If you want to go up there and check it out, just realize getting up there from this time of year through mid-spring would be very difficult. That's more of a summer type thing. This is the Philipsburg Inn. This is the entrance for RVs. On the right-hand side is a motel. In the middle is the owner's home and office. And in front of you is a nearly empty RV park. And that's what we would expect. This is back to Georgetown Lake on the 10th. It was getting windy. That got me off of the water, but I think there'll still be time for more paddling. Anyway, Alan here. Thank you, and you have a great day.